Alright, hello and welcome back to another deck profile. Today we're taking a look at Mythical Beasts, as you can see here, and yes, this is the deck that I was, well basically I'm surprised it took me this long to make a live deck profile considering how many videos I made about this before it was even out. But yes, today we're finally taking a look at the real cards here. They are absolutely beautiful, as you can see there. But yes, I have a whole bunch of replays that'll be in a separate video from this one as well. But playing this deck in real life was kind of a bit disappointing. Obviously online you can get some good days and some bad days, and I had a lot of good days with this deck that just didn't transfer over to playing it in real life. I still love it, still very fun, but playing against a more consistently high level of play, it showed its weak side more than its strong side. But it's still very fun to play, and we'll still go ahead and take a look at it here. Alright, so starting things off, we have 3 copies of King Jackal here, or Jackal King as they changed the name to, because you gotta just swap things around a little bit there on Konami. But I'm starting with him over Master Cerberus because to me he is the, I guess technically you could say since Cerberus searches, he's any of them, so he's the best one on the deck. But I think that Jackal King is the best one on the deck. He's the main play of the deck, and the card that you really want to get to. Now they all have the, they're all scale 4 and they all have the effect in scale, but you can only activate their effect if you have no other monster in your scale. So if he's the only card in your scale, you can destroy him and then special summon any other mythical beast monster from your extra deck, face up from your extra deck, obviously. And then on the field, you can remove 2 spell counters from anywhere to negate the effect of the activation of a monster effect, negate and destroy it. So he's just the best one to me because you go ahead, he's kind of like the end play. You do a whole bunch of work to go ahead and get to him, get some spell counters on him, and he's just kind of your end board there. Usually you'll end on multiples of him actually, or him and a Tornado Dragon, kind of some variation of that. He also gains 2 spell counters for every activation. Then moving on from there, we have another one that gains 2 spell counters for every activation. We have Mythical Beast Master Cerberus. Now he's some insane price right now because he's used in other decks as like an Electromite engine, which I hate that. But anyway, ignoring that, he in scale pops himself to search any other mythical beast monster, and on field, if there are 4 or more spell counters on the field, I believe it's not just on him, but on the field, he can be destroyed by card effects, and you can remove 4 spell counters from anywhere on the field to banish 1 monster your opponent controls, and he gains attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of your opponent's turn. So he's also, usually this deck goes first, so if you're, say going second, don't set up your Jackal King going first, you can just go for, him or 2 of him turn 2 and go ahead and blow your opponent out fairly easily. Usually just 1 copy of him and another monster on field is enough to actually do a pretty swift game there. So the deck does have some some OTK potential, and these kind of 2 cards together have the best effects in scale and on the field. So they're kind of the power of the deck. But how do we get to those cards? We get to them obviously through searching off Master Cerberus, but we also have Mythical Beast Jackal here. Now, Jackal's effect in scale is he simply pops himself to put a spell counter on any card that can have one, but on the field he can remove 3 spell counters from anywhere to attribute himself for cost, and special summon 1 Mythical Beast monster from your deck, and that's not once per turn. So we just go ahead and there's some simple stuff you can do, like if you open 1 of each of the 3 we've already gone over, you can actually set up double King Jackal, assuming you have a way to get spell counters onto them as well. So he's another one of the very good ones in the deck. He's kind of your starter, and you really want to get to him and be able to resolve him to special out a King Jackal or a Cerberus, or whichever mythical beast you need at that time. For some more consistency, we have 3 Mythical Beast Basilisk. Now, I actually want to run him at 2, but having him as another free activation essentially, and the draw power that comes with it is fairly important. Now on field, you can remove 3 spell counters from anywhere to add a mythical beast from your extra deck to your hand, which is quite powerful. But also you can blow him up in scale to shuffle 1 mythical beast monster from your extra deck into the deck, accept him, and draw 1 card. And that free activation and the draw a card really is something that does help out a lot. So I found that 3 of him is not necessary, but it does help out a lot more than the 2 that I was running. For our 1-2 of though, we do have Mythical Beast Garuda. Now it's an MST in scale, or it's also a hand trap with spell counters, which is very interesting and just a very cool thing to have in general. So when your opponent summons a monster or monsters, you can actually go ahead and remove 3 spell counters from anywhere on the field, summon him, and it bounces all the monsters that were summoned back to the hand. So if your opponent goes for a big pendulum summon or just any massive summon, you can go ahead and remove 3 spell counters, special him, and kind of stop your opponent from going off on you there. It also puts a free body on field for some protection as well, and he's overall amazing. Now, if he's so amazing, why are we only running 2 copies of him? Well, that's because usually this deck's going first, so you want to set up with a King Jackal on field and something else, and then him in hand. So we don't actually want to open him, we more would like to search him. So we actually have Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, and then we also have, that we'll get to later, 3 copies of Duelist Alliance as well. So we're essentially running 6 copies of him. So we will see him, and it's again more efficient to be able to search him through Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon because of the activations and deck thinning than to go straight into him. Now for more combo potential, we have 3 copies of Magical Exemplar. The super rares, of course. If you don't have the supers, I mean, come on. But no, I just got it as a super because it's cheap and does look pretty nice actually. But it's a free 1700 body, and it gains 2 spell counters for every activation, which does help you exponentially grow the amount of activations you can actually have. Also, you can remove spell counters from it equals to the level of a spellcaster monster in your hand or grave, and then special summon that monster. So this gets us a free level 4 on field that we can use with say we can resolve Jackal twice in a turn. We can go ahead and special out a King Jackal and then a level 4 and make a Tornado Dragon. So it does open up some possibilities there, and it just gets us more spell counters and a bigger body on field than we'd have otherwise. And that will actually do it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells, we have 2 copies of Pendulum Paradox in addition to the 3 copies of Duelist Alliance. So this is essentially at 5 copies as well. This is another card that I kind of want to cut down by 1, but I definitely like having the 2 more than the 1. Now this is a once per turn, and it adds back 2 monsters with the same pendulum scale from your extract to your hand, which in this deck is every single pendulum monster we run because they're all scale 4. So this is just an absurd amount of recovery for the deck. It gets you free counters for activations. Even though everything in scales are hard once per turn, you can just go ahead and activate those for more spell counters. It sets you up extremely well for next turn. You can use the Amnesty of Garuda and still have it as a hand trap. So this card is just absolutely nuts in the deck. And obviously, like we said, we can just search it off of Duelist Alliance here. One note on Duelist Alliance, it's not as inherently good in this deck as it seems because say you just have a Jackal on field and just need spell counters for it, unless you have a Pendulum monster in hand, you're not going to be able to activate this, which does hurt us. Obviously, there's a very high chance of you getting to a Pendulum monster, given every Mythical Beast monster being one, but there are some times where you can't activate it or you top deck it, and it's just not quite the best card, but overall it's still better than just running multiple copies of the Pendulum Dragon and the Paradox. From there we have cards that we use to get activations of spell counters and just get spell counters in general, and that is with 3 copies of Terraforming and 2 copies of Magical Citadel of Endymion. Now for the longest time I was running this at 2-2, and normally I run 3 field spell to 2 Terraforming ratio in decks, but one of my friends actually convinced me to do a 2-3 on this one, and I am liking it because this is only inherently 1 spell counter, whereas Terraforming is 2. So you'd just rather see Terraforming than this because it's always able to activate and it gets you 2 spell counter activations, whereas this is only 1. And although this does exponentially add up, or not exponentially add up, but this does add up, Terraforming just gets you an extra spell counter in addition to the additions that this one gets as well. And for even more activations, we have the Toon World and the Toon Tables. I really hate this, I really don't like running it, but it is kind of necessary for the deck just to make sure you always have something to activate your Mythical Beast effects on the field. It's also a guaranteed 4 counters, that's if you're only gaining 1, but with Exemplar this is like a guaranteed 8 counters, and it really does just add up from there and let you activate anything in your deck. So it is kind of necessary. I cut it for a while and it just wasn't working as well without it. But for some consistency, we have 2 copies of Desires in addition to 1 Upstart as well. Banishing off Desires does hurt in this deck because with the best play, we'll actually run through 3 King Jackal on our first turn. So I really do like to not banish any of those, but we can play around it, and the deck does just need the extra cards sometime. And Upstart's just a free card along with spell counters, which is, if this was at 3, we'd play that at 3. It's very good in the deck. For some specials, we have Reasoning and 1 for 1. 1 for 1 is not as good in this deck as you'd think it is. It gets you to Jackal, but means you have less cards to actually activate his effect, because this inherently, takes 2 cards and it's taking away a spell activation and a monster. But with Exemplar, it can be pretty good, so it kind of facilitates exemplar combos even more. And then we have Reasoning, which, given the multitude of levels that we have in the deck, is almost guaranteed to get us a free monster on the field, as well as a free spell counter. And then from there, because of the monster we got onto the field, the spell counters rack up even more. And then for a few traps to round things off, the deck inherently has a lot of monster negation, but lacks actual spell and trap negation, so we have 2 copies of Scolding and 1 copy of Judgment as well, just to help us prevent any board wipes, because this deck doesn't have any protection from that besides Master Cerberus protecting himself, and just against spells, since we can't really do anything against them. And that actually rounds off the main deck. For our extra deck, we just have some kind of utility XYZs. We have 1 Castell and 1 totally legitimate Tornado Dragon that is in no way just a piece of paper that says Tornado Dragon, or clearly an old Borreload piece of paper that says Tornado Dragon. It is clearly an actual Tornado Dragon. But yes, just 2 good utility rank 4s there, in addition to the utility of the Lightning package, just the mini one for space. You could run the full one because the extra deck isn't super important to this deck, but there's some other things I'd like to run as well. But again, these are pretty much just the best utility rank 4s that we can have access to, so we're going for those. Because of King Jackal, we do have a lot of level rank 6 plays that we could make actually, so we run a few options for that. We have 1 M7 just to be able to add anything back, or go ahead and add something our opponent has. 1 Naruto for that spell and trap disruption that this deck is lacking, and 1 Utopia Beyond just to help push for a game. Again, some of just the best rank 6s. We don't have to run Bouncer because we already have inherent effect negation. So we're just kind of running the same thing I run for Cyber Angels actually, but with Naruto instead of Bouncer, because we can actually make Naruto with our spell counters. Or our spell casters, not spell counters, jeez. And then for our 8s, I'd like to run Hope Harbinger and maybe still a Felgrand, but I actually don't have a Hope Harbinger and it's weirdly expensive right now. So I actually just run a Lancelot and a Felgrand, just more ways to negate things. If your opponent's down to 1 or 2 cards, Lancelot is pretty good, as well as outing monsters by attacking directly. And Felgrand's just overall a card I still genuinely really like. And then moving on to the links, just kind of speed through this, we have a totally legit Link Karibo, Proxy, Akashic, Decode, Ningirsu, and Borreload. Nothing special there, just a kind of standard package of some utility stuff there. We can make Ningirsu kind of easily with Link Karibo, so we still have him in there just to go into. And then Borreload, obviously. It's just, again, some of the more good utility stuff that we can run out of the extra deck. But we'll go ahead and show off one of the more standard combos of this deck as well. And you'll just need these 3 cards or some kind of variation of them. So not necessarily Toon Table, but just some more cards you can activate for spell counters. We'll just go with this because it's the simplest way to do it. A way to get to Mythical Beast King Jackal, and a way to get to regular Jackal as well. Usually that will be through the form of Cerberus searching for 1, but you are just going to have to hard draw or open the one of the 2, which is kind of a problem because it does lead to some consistency issues. But it's still a fun deck overall. Just ignore that. Just ignore that. But anyway, so we'll start things off by normal summoning the Mythical Beast Jackal here. From there, we'll just go ahead and get some activations on 2 tables. So we'll go ahead and get actually grab some dice here to make this more official. Ignore me being unprepared and reaching for them here. But we'll go ahead and activate a Toon Table and search for another one, which will get him 1 spell counter, which will be there. The worst part of this deck is finding your numbers on dice, actually. We'll go ahead and activate that one to search another one, which will get him up to 2. From there, we'll go ahead and activate our Mythical Beast King Jackal in scale, which will put him up to 3. From there, we can actually remove the counters from him, tribute him for cost to go ahead and special summon, and we will special summon, where is it at? We will special summon another copy of King Jackal, preferably in one of the far zones, so that he's not viable to be hit by Akashic's effect there. From there, we'll go ahead and actually activate the King Jackal effect in scale to special back the Mythical Beast Jackal that we have in the extra deck. We'll actually just put him here to try and keep the zones a little bit neater. And then we still have 1 Toon Table to be activated, so we'll go ahead and activate that, searching out our Toon World, which will put us up to 2 counters on our King Jackal there, and 1 counter on Mythical Beast Jackal here. So we'll go ahead and remove all 3 counters to use his effect again, which will go ahead and special the last King Jackal from the deck. Again, preferably not in an Akashic zone, so we'll go ahead and put him in the middle zone there. And then usually you'd have another card in hand to activate for this, obviously to get the spell counter since they have none, but then you can just go ahead and activate Toon World, which will get 2 counters on each of them, which will make the effect negation live for each of them. So you will have 2 monster negations on your opponent's, or monster effect negations on your opponent's turn. So as you can see, it was 3 cards. Again, it's half searchable, half not searchable, and you kind of need suboptimal cards to get it to go off through the Toon Worlds, obviously, or the Toon Tables. But it's still, again, very fun, and that's just kind of the standard combo. Let's say you had Exemplar on field instead, then instead of going for the second King Jackal, you could say go for a Basilisk here. Basilisk, you can remove some counters to add back, you know, a King Jackal for next turn, and then go into like a Tornado Dragon from there. So there are some variations you can do with Magical Exemplar. Again, if you're going second, instead of specialing out a King Jackal, you could go ahead and go for a Master Cerberus and push for game. So there are a lot of options that you have and different things that you can do. And overall, it's just a neat and fun kind of idea, and definitely something very fun to mess around with at the least. But anyway, I pretty much covered everything I actually wanted to say at the end of this, at the end of the kind of like combo tutorial there. So again, just a really fun deck, very interesting. It's a little bit pricey because it's used in some other things right now as an engine, obviously with Master Cerberus being the money card. But if you can get your hands on it and have, you know, some more casual matchups you can play, it's very fun and I definitely recommend it. But I'll stop rambling and go ahead and go to the usual plugs at the end of the episode. So link to my Twitter down in the description where I'll throw out some random thoughts about the game and tweet stuff out whenever new videos come out. In addition to a link to my Discord where we just kind of chill and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes we get off topic, but mostly kind of focus on the game there. Also a link to my Patreon where you can support me if you appreciate the effort that I put into these videos, especially with the worst deck of all time and other similar series where it's a lot of editing and recording. And I think it comes out very polished, but it definitely is a lot of work to get it to where I like it to be. So if you appreciate that, you can support me on there, but no pressure, no content or anything will be gated off, but it will gain you some extra duels that weren't making it into the final cuts of videos anyway, so I figured I'd go ahead and give them to the supporters on there. But again, no pressure, you're all awesome just for watching. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. I'm sweating. This is the light's so fucking hot.
You just spoke for 30 minutes without breathing.
Yes, yeah, I don't breathe.
I can tell.